Joe Garrison continues his one-man crusade to get justice for his family's murder, but if he ever wants to get to the bottom of this twisted conspiracy, he'll need to battle his own darkest fears first. What'll happen next? Well, let's hop into the pages of Punisher issue number 3 and find out together, shall we? So then, as we join this newest issue, we actually join the story in progress. You'll remember at the end of the previous issue, Joe had come to the realization that he actually wasn't the target the night his family's home exploded. Instead, it was actually his wife who was seemingly in the crosshairs. And as is heavily implied by news broadcasts in the background, the deaths may also somehow be connected by the upcoming Symkaria-Bagalia peace talks. Though Joe sure isn't thinking about any of that right now. He's shot and on the run from the 2 cops, including Detective Linus, who have been chasing him since this series began. The cops corner Joe inside an old warehouse, but he's not alone, as it seems that Joe is actively being hunted by the Fearmaster. Never heard of this character? Well, she's actually the daughter of Mr. Fear, a mostly forgotten Daredevil character. Her powers operate more or less the same as her father. She can create gas that will make you live your worst nightmare. Only she doesn't have a gas gun. The Fear compound actually exists inside her bloodstream itself. Now, in a nice little bit of connective tissue, Detective Linus and his partner are actually unable to call in backup right now, as it seems that all the uniformed officers are busy dealing with the events of gang war, which is of course a big city-spanning story happening over in the pages of Spider-Man, which honestly I kind of like and appreciate that a brand new Punisher-esque character is able to basically fly under the radar right now because all the other heroes are busy. After inhaling enough fear toxin to kill a small rhino, Joe ends up hallucinating, and I know what you're thinking, oh great, really? We're gonna have another story wherein a hero has to fight their worst fears? Yawn, haven't seen that a million times. Well, wait a minute, because Papose is actually smart enough to use this as an opportunity to explore Joe as a character, specifically his crippling guilt, both the survivor's guilt of having lived when his wife and kids died in the explosion that took their family home, but also the guilt he feels after a lifetime of being a S.H.I.E.L.D. assassin. And why yes, before you even have to ask, apparently some of the dirtiest deeds Joe Garrison did as the gravedigger of S.H.I.E.L.D. just so happened to be in Symkaria and Bagalia. A fact of which I'm sure won't come back and be important later at all. Now already this is some good character stuff that goes a long way to once again help differentiate Joe from Frank. Frank probably never felt bad a day in his life about any of the stuff he ever did. Nor do I think Frank ever felt a little suicidal like Joe does in this situation. Yes, he claimed that he was going to avenge his family and root out this conspiracy, but when he sees the literal ghosts of his wife and kids threatening to take him away, he basically throws up his hands and say, yes, please take me. I don't want to live anymore. I just want to be back with you guys. Is that really too much to ask? Well, it is, sadly. Apparently, Joe Garrison's greatest fear isn't dying, it's living with unfinished business. In fact, more than anything, this is kind of the moment wherein Joe actually ends up accepting the mantle of the Punisher in only as much as he is actually the one punishing himself for failure. He was unable to save his family that night, and because of it, he now vows to never again turn a blind eye or a deaf ear to injustice ever again. This also means actively going out of his way to help the very detectives who are trying to arrest him right now. You see, while Joe was tripping balls, Fearmaster was picking off Detective Linus's partner. And she probably very well would have killed Linus himself if Joe didn't swoop on in to make the save. Obviously, this is pretty awkward as the cop has been trying to catch this guy, and now he owes him his life. Joe manages to grab Fearmaster's phone, and we see that the true villains at the heart of this have also managed to kidnap Joe's tech support, AAA. But who are these mysterious villains? Why do they have it out for the Symkaran Bagalia peace talks? Well, we don't know, but as the comic comes to an end, we finally learn their name. You'll never guess it, but it turns out this shadowy cabal of terrorists calls themselves Jigsaw. Though, as we can plainly see as the comic comes to a close, these guys are far removed from Billy Russo and have way more in common with a Hydra or an AIM. And so that was Punisher issue number 3, everybody, and once again, I gotta say, this series has actually been enjoyably consistent since it all began, and I'm even more interested now to see where it's all gonna go. 3 issues in, it seems that this series has decided to eschew the classic neo-noir street-level stuff that Frank normally gets up to and instead decides to lean entirely into the whole spycraft skullduggery side of the Punisher, which Frank only occasionally ever got up to. Which is fine by me because once again it actually helps give Joe Garrison his own identity. Speaking of which, Joe actually seems to be a lot less crazy and a lot more single-minded than the original Punisher, which is certainly a direction to go. Likewise, Joe hasn't gone so far as just to declare a blanket war on all crime and criminality in the world, instead choosing to laser focus on people who need him in the moment, which honestly makes him seem more like a traditional superhero. But perhaps I think the biggest difference between Frank and Joe that this issue chooses to highlight is that Joe actually has no problem working with cops like Detective Linus. Well, at least for now he does. This is one of those stories where I'm almost certain we'll see a couple more double crosses and big reveals by the time it's all said and done, so you have to wonder if Joe will continue to feel that way. Then again, Joe also is an older dude who came out of S.H.I.E.L.D. and because of that probably feels a greater respect for the chain of command and institutions, where Frank was a dude who was so regularly burned by anyone in his life in any position of authority you can understand why he ended up being the way he was, and you also have to suspect when Frank inevitably comes back, and of course he's going to, he'd probably have a problem with how Joe conducts himself. Overall, though, I'd feel comfortable giving this issue another 7.5 out of 10. Consistency is important, and consistency is what this book has been delivering. Hey there everyone, it's your old pal Cape Joel again, thanking you so much for watching to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, why not check out my Amazon link down in the description. Yes, that's right, the Cape Joel channel officially has its own Amazon storefront now. You can pick up a comic or anything else for that matter, and if you did, you'd really be helping me in the channel. So with that out of the way everyone, I will see you again next time. Bye-bye.